Hello everyone, RFG here with the review for Great God Grove, a top-down story-focused puzzle adventure game with some portions set in a first-person perspective. Developed and published by LimboLane with additional publishing by Fellow Traveler, available on PC, Switch, Xbox Series X and S. A tale of gods in the upcoming apocalypse, where the gods seem to have lots of conviction in order to stop the end of the world, and you finding ways to help them regain it. Great God Grove opens with you in first person as a stowaway on a ship, and the captain, Hauser, singing a tune only to discover that you're also on board. While he questions who you are, you're free to reply, as a silent protagonist, with a nod or shake of the camera. The thumbs up at the top displays whether you're agreeing or disagreeing to show which answer you're leaning towards. Great God Grove mostly reserves these first-person sequences when you're interacting with the various gods that you'll meet. They will also require you to give a response at times to help move the game along. Your view may be limited in these interactions, but you're also free to look around to see the spaces these gods occupy. Moving along, Captain Hauser decides that you look nice enough and decides to drop you off at the Grove. Before you arrive there, the captain tells you about the Festival of the Rift, and how the last elected new god, King, has recently been sending troubling letters to the other gods in the Grove. It doesn't take much longer before King's mail delivery cannon, a vacuum and dispenser-like device, crashes through the roof of the ship and you're able to learn its uses. The captain will point out that there's something stuck in the container. Dispensing objects from the mail cannon is more like jettisoning them out, and before landing at the Grove, you'll see that objects with the rotating dotted outline can be sucked up with the cannon. Part of the puzzle design of Great God Grove is to use the cannon to take and store objects and then shoot them out at characters or targets when applicable, but again, that's just part of the design. After being dropped off at the Grove and switching to a top-down perspective, you're given freedom of movement. You can interact with the characters you see and occasionally with objects on the field. You're able to aim your mail cannon 360 degrees around you to decide where you want to fire out your stored objects. Items are shown in your inventory on the left whenever you want to throw them out or switch which one is selected. You're limited in what you can do at this stage, so finding and speaking to Bugworth gives you your first objective, which only goes so well. If you didn't notice before, or if you didn't interact with other characters, some of their text boxes will have the same visual indicator as objects that you can pick up. This is a larger part of how puzzles in Great God Grove are solved. Sucking up key phrases from characters and firing them at the appropriate target is how you'll make your way through the game. Some objects you can find can be stored and fired as I mentioned earlier, so it's not always a simple case to find phrase A and fire at character X, but using logic and keeping track of what a character is saying to move on. Not all phrases or objects are useful either. Some characters will throw out what are basically junk phrases. Sometimes these bring out a response from others, but don't yield any productive results. When these phrases and objects aren't useful, they'll usually just bounce off the target where you can restock it from there, or they'll just disappear after a length of time and you can grab it again from where you originally found it. The gods themselves can lend their words for puzzles, and borrowing phrases from them and firing others at them can assist you in moving forward or give you hints on how to progress. You're given a 5-phrase or object limit, so weeding out what's necessary and what isn't leads you to juggle what makes sense to hold on to or get rid of. If it's something that is needed to progress, you'll usually be able to restock it in some way. Short-term quests aren't the bulk of the design though, and due to the nature of how the puzzles work, Great God Grove's story and puzzle progression are generally interlocked and for the most part both advance in a linear fashion. In essence, many of the small quests are pieces that begin from an immediate reaction to one of King's letters that form into bigger blocks that connect to the root of a god's current state, and then combine to regain a god's resolve to complete that arc. The way each arc progresses isn't uniform either. While small quests follow the logic of matching a phrase to a specific character, some arcs may be divided by different areas of their map, or you may only gain access to certain dialogue lines by factoring in other interactions. And though you're never really given more abilities other than to take, store, and fire objects and phrases, Great God Grove does a decent job of twisting the formula. For example, the end of each arc even gives you a clever way to dispose of unneeded phrases before moving on. But I do think there are some minor issues. A lot of the small puzzles do function mostly like fetch quests. Hitboxes can be a bit wonky, and you can see that more in some of the boss-like sequences. And while most items and phrases just bounce off targets when they aren't needed, some others just disappear from the inventory entirely, prompting you to grab them directly from their origin point again. Like I said, those are minor issues, and there's plenty of other things that make up for it. The hand-drawn style of most of the environment and characters have a distinct flair, and this keeps up with the 3D models of the gods and their surroundings. These do feel less detailed overall, but they have their own appeal. The story, despite the apocalyptic premise and having King and the letters as a central plot point, never felt like they overtook the focus of what's immediately happening around you. A lot of this has to do with the personality of many of the characters. Each area has their own set residing within them, and not all are as memorable as others, but enough of them are, and they all tend to have some text-based quirks, including the busy boys, who do move on to the other areas. They also have a set of VHS infomercial-style videos of puppet versions of themselves located throughout the game to add to their personalities. But it's the gods themselves who draw the most attention. Each is distinct, but it was after helping Miss Maternack regain her composure in her section of the Grove, where she asked me to help reunite the gods, gave me a real sense of motivation. To add to the characters' personalities, each one has their own voice. These aren't fully voiced lines, but rather simulated jumble speech that adds to their individuality. The music also adds to the overall package. While the pace of the game is usually fairly calm and slow-paced, the tracks for each area matches the environment itself. Pace and difficulty are also matched throughout the game. There's never any reason to rush anything, and even in the few combative scenarios in the game, there's no real penalty you'll face except losing your own time. And though the game's not too long, it is evenly paced, but there's also not much replay value that I can see. I did enjoy my time with Great God Grove. Its lighthearted story and leisurely style of gameplay, combined with its sense of humor, are well paced, and still offers fairly mature themed endings to each arc. For those who aren't into narratively focused games, or puzzle adventure games that don't really have that much of an action aspect mixed into it, I don't think there's much interest you'll find here. The lack of replay value and the total game length is something else to consider. So if Great God Grove looks like a good fit for you, I recommend visiting your respective store page to take a look. But that's it from me. Let me know what you think below. Thanks. Bye.